You want to introduce people?
Yes. Okay. So, hello everyone. I'm very happy that you're here and thank you for joining us today for this workshop, Road to Grad School, that we prepare to try to share some of our experiences and what we have learned throughout the application process and also just in our lives as grad students in general. So, my name is Viridiana Leiva. I'm a third year student in the Hiring Lab. I work with stem cells and hydrogels made from peptides. So it's all very interesting. And yeah,
Thanks, Edie. My name is Carson Cole, and I'm also a second year graduate student in the Heart Cream Lab, working with peptides and making hydrogels as well.
Thanks, Carson. My name is Jordan Metz. I'm a fourth year graduate student in the Alvarez lab at Rice, and I work on nanotechnology for water treatment and removal of persistent contaminants in water.
Hello, everyone. I am Mary Bajama. I am a first year graduate student, and I am currently still doing rotation, so I haven't officially joined the group yet.
okay. Thanks, guys. Like I said, we're very happy to have you here. And we really hope that this workshop is useful to you. So, one thing that you have to know is that all of us come from Rice University in the chemistry department. And so the one thing that I really want to say about this is that being part of the Rice community is a great experience. And there are a lot of things that you can get involved and really whatever it is that you're interested on and want to get more involved in the community, there will surely be something for you. So yeah, Rice is great. If you have more questions about these, we can answer these at the end of the talk. So let's talk about, apart from being grad students in the chemistry department at Rice, we are also part of this new initiative called FACETS, which stands for Facilitating Advances in Chemistry for Equity and Transparency for Scholars, which might be a mouthful, but basically we try to promote diversity and representation as well as inclusion by encouraging dialogue and awareness and helping people get involved and gain new perspectives, as well as create a welcoming environment for both our current and prospective students. So we have a lot of projects going on, but one of those is this workshop that we're trying to use to get grad school and make it more known for everyone and help people get the questions that they might have answered. So today we will address four of these that are: what is a PhD program? What can you do with one? Am I qualified to apply to grad school? And of course, how do I apply? So the first thing that you need to know regarding what a PhD is that you will get paid for conducting research, taking classes, and developing all the skills that you need to become an independent thinking scholar. And I'll just repeat this because it's very important. You will get paid for this. And this is very, I'm talking on behalf of myself and other students in the chemistry department, that a lot of us didn't know this. But a PhD is actually kind of a job. It's a job because you're doing the research that you want to do, but you're also generating this new knowledge. So most PhD programs, not necessarily all of them, but at least in STEM and in particular in chemistry, they will provide you with a stipend that will range between 20,000 and 30,000 per year, depending on where you're applying. And you do not have to worry about paying any tuition. So the tuition will be waived and you can just focus on your research. And like I said, the PhD program are considered a full-time jobs, where it's really uncommon to have to look for a secondary job, because really what you're going to focus on is just your research and your project. Of course, you're also going to have time to engage in other university activities like we are doing so here by running this workshop or whatever you're interested on. So the primary focus really is going to be research and not necessarily classes. This isn't true for all of the programs, but at least in chemistry, you will take some classes at the beginning of the program and then you will finish during the first 2 or 3 years. And some fields might require more classes, But really what you're going to work on is your project and whatever your lab is working on. So what is really, really exciting about being a PhD student is that you're going to push the boundaries of your field. So you will make new discoveries and you will work on things that no one else is working on in the world. A PhD, a doctoral degree is all about becoming the world expert in your field. So no one will know more about your project than you. And I think that's really, really nice and really interesting. And we have both basic and applied research in most of the programs. So whatever it is that you want to work on or whatever your interests in science are, there's definitely one program with that out there. So really it's all about looking for what you want. And then what else is a PhD program? It's about independent research. And I think this is one of the things that my advisor told me in the first meeting that I had with him. Grad school is going to be your journey. It's the biggest difference between being an undergrad and a grad student, that you're going to lead your own project and you're going to drive whatever you're working on. And really your advisor is not going to be there to tell you exactly what to do, but rather he or she is going to collaborate with you to generate new lines of research and just help you think through whatever problems you come up with. But really grad school is all about where you want to take it. So that freedom is also really good for your development as a professional. And grad school, of course, just like science, is both independent and collaborative, because you will work with other grad students, postdocs, professors, and other lab groups, and all of these will enrich your research. And so at RISE, for example, we have collaborations with the NASA, with the Department of Defense. In Houston, Texas, that is where RISE is located, we have the Texas Medical Center, that is the largest medical center in the world. So a lot of interesting collaborations come from there. So really all of these will make your projects even more interesting. And with that, I'll give Carson the word.
Thanks so much, Vidi. And so now I kind of want to answer and elucidate why someone would want to get a PhD, right? And for all of us here, it was probably very different in the beginning, but essentially during your PhD, you're going to have the opportunity to broaden your career opportunities. As a critical thinker, you're going to open up portions of the job market that are only accessible to you after you get your PhD. And maybe you were sitting in undergraduate coursework and you wanted to know deeply about something, but just didn't have the time or resource to do that. And graduate school is an excellent time to do that. And on top of investigating things, you're going to also add to the textbook knowledge that's out there and elucidate a new field. In general, you'll also have the opportunity to make more money as the higher degree you are qualified to have. Usually you can earn more of those high level job market spots. And then you can also garnish respect of others and have the opportunity to network with smart people. Everyone around you here is networking and trying to help each other move and progress science in some way. And that's a really exciting part about graduate school. And possibly during, hopefully, your undergraduate research, you are able to interact with a professor, and maybe you also want to go into academia. And definitely graduate school is the way to do that. And maybe a global pandemic hit and you want to stay in school forever because the job market is a little shabby right now, and that's totally fine too. But overall, you're going to cultivate new ways of thinking, problem solving, independence, and a mindset for research, and is essentially gaining a whole new asset of skills. Next, please. So if any of these reasons resonate with you, I would encourage you to apply to a PhD program. And of course, this list is not exhaustive. So maybe you have another reason that's going to motivate you to getting a PhD. Next, please. And so what can you do with a PhD? Maybe when you think of a PhD, you think of mainly a professor or someone that's, in an academic circle, but that application of skills that you develop during graduate school are broad and absolutely necessary for every realm of the workforce. So you gain data analysis skills, you gather and interpret information. On top of that, you're motivating your own project, like Beauty said. And to do that, you have to be quick at learning new concepts and then applying that to instrumentation or maybe reactions. And you also develop self-management skills, creative thinking to work around problems as they arise. And on top of this, you learn to communicate your results in the written format through journal publications, seminars, things like that. And you also get to do cool events like this outside to communicate about science. But overall, you're going to be a better project manager and make better decisions. So at the end of your PhD, you're going to be a very competent individual that's marketable and able to qualify for these really awesome jobs. Next, please. And so talking about kind of the bubbles within the workforce that you can go into, of course, you can become a professor in academia, you can do research, R&D in the government, industry and business development. Broadly, your skills can apply to consulting, administration, and intellectual property as we translate science into the real world. And you can also get involved with politics and science policy, really impact how the world views science as a person that has come to understand it during the course of your PhD. Regulatory affairs, some of us are very interested in science writing and communication, whether that be through journals or main media. And then, of course, you can teach, go into art conservation, forensics, and law enforcement. Next, please. And so really, this is a broad set of skills. So you can apply for a broad set of, jobs in the workforce. And so just to give everyone a list of what people from our Rice Chemistry PhD program do, they end up going on to postdoctoral fellows at top universities in the world. They become senior chemists in industry, research scientists. Some of them, because you've learned essentially the skills and developed them, you can actually become an engineer or a professor. Some of us have gone on to work for companies that develop batteries, data analysts. And like VD said, you are able to market and interact with people within great places like NASA or the FDA or Texas Medical Center down here in Houston. And so really, pretty much any job market you want to get into, you can motivate that during the course of your PhD. And those include these really heavy hitting great industries such as, nanomaterials, nanomedicine, bioengineering, pharmaceuticals, bionics, environmental, big tech, and of course, cancer research. And with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Jordan to discuss the next section.
Thanks, Carson. So at this point in the presentation or in your life, you might be asking yourself, am I qualified to apply to grad school? And so the answer is certainly yes, you're qualified to apply to grad school. Now, why might you be thinking about this? Why might you be a little bit unsure? Why was I unsure? Why are a lot of us unsure? Well, imposter syndrome is real. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if I was qualified at all when I was in my junior and senior year of college. I wasn't sure if I was qualified or if I was the right person for grad school, and I applied and I got into more places than I thought I would, and I've been very happy here at Rice. But I still suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes. That's a real thing, and it affects a lot of us, and that's okay. We'll work through it. But I don't want that to stop you from applying to grad school if you think there's some chance that you're interested in it. If any of the questions that Carson posed or the reasons people go to grad school resonate with you, then you should seriously consider applying to grad school and think that, yes, you are qualified and you can apply. Now, depending on the type of program you apply to, there are some requirements that you need to fulfill. Next slide. So what do most applicants need to apply? So you need a bachelor's in the field or related field that you're applying to. So for chemistry, for example, you should have a bachelor's in science in chemistry or some related field like chemical engineering or chemical physics or something like that. And if you're not totally sure if yours would apply to the field that you're interested in, ask your undergraduate professors in that field, because the people who are actually grading or analyzing your applications are professors in that department, not an overarching admissions committee like for undergrad admissions. And so you generally need a bachelor's in the field or related field. You need strong grades, particularly in courses related to your field. So for chemistry, particularly in science courses. And it's often to have that applicants have research experience. Now, in Rice chemistry, the applicants are evaluated holistically, not just on one application component. So if you have some poor grades in some certain classes, or you weren't able to get research experience based on your undergraduate institution or your life at the time, but if you can still make a case for building the skills required for research, then the admissions committee should take that pretty seriously. And at Rice, they do. And again, the admissions committee is professors in the field. And so they understand that people are coming from a lot of different backgrounds and that there are a lot of different skills that can work for pursuing a PhD, and for our case, for a chemistry PhD. So ultimately, while there are some things you do need to apply, you can't be accepted if you don't even apply. So again, if you think that you're interested in graduate school, please apply or consider applying so that you can see how it goes for you, and hopefully you'll be able to be accepted. Highly recommend that. Next slide. So what do most PIs say? So PI, or principal investigator, the professor that you're working for, knows that, you know, when you're a grad student working in a research lab, your projects are going to be highly specialized and your skills are going to be highly specialized. But just because your skills are highly specialized, next, doesn't mean that you have to know those skills going in. Actually, most people don't know all the skills that they're going to need to know for the job. They learn on the job. And so when you're looking for a lab, you're going to be getting a professor that you're talking with that's going to ask you about how you think about these problems and what you're interested in and what your background is, but not asking you, oh, do you already have this entire skill set? Most people will learn those skills when they join the lab and not prior to being admitted to a program. So what actually matters then, if not just the technical skills? Well, being invested in your research and also your own personal learning, very important. Being passionate about science or your field, and being open and willing to learning new things, even if it's hard, and being willing to work hard and diligently to learn those new things and to get results and work through the challenging aspects of your scientific research. And finally, that ability to be able to work both by yourself and in a team are really important. Science and research in general these days aren't done by individual people. It's done as a group or in a small team or in pairs. Working with others is very important. That said, there's a lot of work that you're going to have to do by yourself to be able to generate data, to talk about with others and collaborate and go back and forth. So being able to have both those skill sets of working by yourself and with others are very important in being able to be successful in a PhD program. And so now that you've learned a little bit about, why you should apply and start thinking about how you can apply, you have to think about, okay, if I want to apply, how do I even get started? What do I do? Well, think about schools that have research that you're actually interested in. What are things that you're interested in? Whether you've done, undergrad research and you find that, oh, I want to keep going in this direction, or I want to do something totally new. Like, that's okay. But start thinking about what your research interests are and then Google it. Google, PhD program, this subject, that subject, and start looking into it. Or look up some different universities that you've heard about, or talk to your professors or grad students that you know, and look up some different places. And when you do, you should really look up some different professors at each one. So as a side note, some programs require that you apply directly to the professor, whereas other programs require you to apply to the department. In chemistry, you apply to the chemistry department. And then once you are accepted and you arrive, then as Mary said she's doing now, since she's a first year, you do rotations through the different labs and you match with a professor. And so if that's the type of place that you're applying to, like in chemistry, you should really have 3 different professors that match your interest in each university. You don't want to just have one and then risk not being able to match with them if you arrive. And those professors that you do have an interest in, you should mention them in your personal statement of your application. So some other factors to consider besides universities and departments that have professors doing research that's interesting to you are, does the school have sufficient access to scientific equipment that you think you'll need for doing your research? Also, what size is the department? Some people prefer a smaller, more tight-knit department, others a larger group, others don't care, but something to consider. What's the graduate student culture like, both within the department and also as a whole at the university? You're going to be doing work that's challenging and hard, and you're going to fail sometimes, and that's okay. But having a really strong community is very important for helping you get through some of the difficult times. And so having a good graduate student culture is something to really consider when applying to places, or at least once you've already applied and gotten into some places, something to consider when determining which school to go to. Also, some people care about the location, and some don't. Some will apply anywhere in the world. Some people say, I'm not going to go to a place where there's cold weather. So that's something to take into consideration when you're looking at schools to apply. And finally, don't worry about rankings so much. Rankings are the least important thing you should worry about. All these other factors are much more important because a lot of the PhD is the research you're going to be doing at that institution with the facilities you're able to access, and also the people you're working with. So the ranking of the school doesn't matter if you're happy with your research environment, with your professor, and with the topic of research you're doing and the people around you. So consider these other things before you look into rankings. All right, next slide. I'm gonna pass this off to Mary.
Hello again, everyone. So once you decide on the schools that you will be applying to, the next step would be to start working on your applications. So PhD applications are quite different than college applications. There is no common app for PhD applications. So for each program that you're interested in, you need to check the program's website to be able to find the application. And these applications can vary a lot in structure and in format. However, they all typically require an application fee, but they're not as rigid as you may think. If you are unable to pay this fee, you should always reach out to the program coordinator, and their information should be available on the program's website. And you should ask them for a fee waiver. However, for Rice Chemistry, you don't have to worry about that at all because Rice Chemistry will be waiving all fees for all students, domestic and international, in this year, 2020. So applications are all typically also due around December 1st. However, I strongly encourage you to apply early. Early applications are often reviewed earlier, and that can only benefit you. Next, please. Applications also typically require a personal statement, a CV or resume, your college transcripts, letters of recommendation, the GRE, which is a standardized test. They have the general test and subject tests like chemistry and physics. And Rice will also be waiving the GRE requirement for this year, so you don't have to worry about that at all. And it's also a great reason to apply to Rice. So the personal statement is a really important part of your application. And this is where you basically get to tell the admissions committee who you are and why you want to go to grad school in your own words. You basically want to concisely tell your story about why you're interested in pursuing a PhD. And you can potentially explain how you could bring a different perspective to the cohort and program you'll be attending. You should talk about any research experience that you've had in the past. So maybe you were a part of undergraduate research or you had a research internship. You need to talk about that and what you've learned from that experience. And if you haven't been part of any research experience, that's okay. You can talk about classes or labs that were really impactful and also serve as motivation for you pursuing a PhD. So your personal statement should mainly be about you. So you should be able to write your personal statement almost in its entirety without even knowing the schools that you want to go to. And whenever you do decide on the schools you want to go to, you can slightly alter your personal statement to match each school you're interested in. So that typically is done in the last paragraph, and that's where you express why you want to go to that specific program, that specific university. Next. So I just want to emphasize that both for your personal statement and also considering whether you want to apply to grad school, that your story matters. Your perspective is really, really important, even if, and especially if, you don't have a stereotypical science narrative. You don't have to have the same background as everyone else to excel in a PhD program or even your field. So your background, your research interests, what you want in the future, it's all really, really important. And a lot of the most successful grad students, a lot of the most interesting research come from people who are from different backgrounds and have different interests and are working in different fields. So that's all really, really important in when you're writing your personal statement and also considering whether you want to go to grad school. Next. Next, please. So another part of your really important part of your application are the letters of recommendation. And they basically serve the purpose of telling the admissions committee who you are from an outside perspective. So the most important question to ask yourself whenever you're trying to decide who to write your letters of recommendation is who knows you the best. And that could be people in academia, like an undergrad advisor, a professor who you're just very close with, a professor who you took their class and was very impactful, and you guys formed a good relationship. You could reach outside of academia and reach out to a mentor or boss from a job or internship that you've had in the past. But in general, it's not proper to ask family members or people who don't know you well in general. So you shouldn't be reaching out to maybe political figures that you have connections with or celebrities or anything like that. It's good practice to give your letter writers at least a month in advance, to let them know at least a month in advance before the due date of the application. So you give them enough time to be able to write the letter of recommendation. And if they're cutting it close to the deadline, you could always send them a reminder. And it's also good practice to give them a list of your attributes and also your CV. And you could also bring up an experience that might bring back any positive memories that you've had with them, which will allow them to be able to write a very good letter of recommendation for you. So for PhD applications, you get to know whether you've been accepted pretty soon after you submit your application. Acceptances are typically sent out in December to January, and after you've been accepted, you receive invitations for graduate visiting weekends. And these are really, really fun, all expense paid weekend trips where you get to tour the facilities, meet the current graduate students, meet with professors that you may be interested in working with, and observe how everyone just interacts together. And these graduate visiting weekends are really, really helpful, and they'll help you eventually decide which school you would want to attend for your PhD. So now that you've heard everything we've had to say, I hope you're able to answer a few things for yourself. Whether a PhD program is appealing to you, do you want the skills a PhD program could provide? And do you feel qualified and ready to apply? And if you answered yes to these questions, I strongly encourage you to apply, and I wish you best of luck on all of your applications. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. I'd like to open it up to questions. You can leave your questions in the Q&A box down below. Thank you.
All right.